All right, so we'll say good morning. Let's begin. Our shiurim this month are dedicated by Ayala and Sarah Steinberg in honor of the yard site of Ayala's mother, Elia Daphna Bas Yosef. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, her neshama will have an aliyah and the family in nechama. Also, we'll say we have an additional sponsorship by the Efron family, Menashe and Bracha Efron, dedicate the learning today in Mazel Tov to the engagement of Rina Greenlinger, the Avi's daughter, and Yehuda first. Rita is daughter of Avi and Sarah Greenlinger, and as a schus for Refuah Shlema for Menashe David ben Braina, who is in surgery this morning. We wish a Mazel Tov to the Chassan and Kala, and ultimately a Refuah Shlema to Menashe David ben Braina. All right, so with that, let's begin. A lot to do today. Today's daf is Yud Beis. We are picking up on Yud Aleph Amud Beis 11b. So also we're picking up with V'haksiv ben arba'im. It's 2, 4, 6, 8 lines up from the bottom. So remember again, the Gemara introduced to us an interesting concept, an interesting idea about Ben Beseira. So Rabbi Elazar said in the name of Rabbi Shia that Ben Beseira said that if you shecht the Karban Pesach lishmo on right Pesach Shatun Shachris Barabasa lishmo kosher. So Ben Beseira says that if you shecht the Karban Pesach on the morning of the 14th, the morning of Erev Pesach, then ultimately, again, the carbon will be kosher. Why? Because Ben Beseira holds that the entire day is appropriate ultimately for Karban Pesach. Good. So says the Gemara, I ben arba'im. So the Gemara says, I'm sorry. V'haksiv ben arba'im. But one second, how could Ben Beseira say that the entire day is kosher for Karban Pesach? The Torah explicitly says that when is the Karban Pesach offered up? Ben arba'im. Ben arba'im means what? Presumably means what? In the afternoon. Amru ula breid Rabbi Loi bein shnei aravim. So the way Ben Beseira interprets it, says ben arba'im means between the two evenings. So it has to be offered up ultimately again between. This is actually a fascinating drasha between the evening of the 14th and the evening of the 15th, which essentially what gives you the entire day of the 14th. Ultimately, to go ahead and do the carbon. We'll say, look at Rashi, 5 lines up on the bottom. So from dawn until sunset. So that's how Ben Beseira darshans bein arba'im. The Gemara says, 1 second. So now what the Gemara is going to do is quote a whole bunch of other circumstances where bein arba'im is also said, and to try to figure out if at the end of the day it means the same thing there as well. To which the Gemara explains, Tamid. What about by the carbon tamid where it says bein arba'im? So does that also mean that at the end of the day that the entire day is kosher for carbon pesach? Excuse me, for the carbon tamid as well. So the Gemara says no. Also by tamid it's different. Why? Because ultimately, again, you have a pasuk that says that one is offered up in the morning. So once it says that one is offered up in the morning, by definition, that means that what? That bein ha'arbayim by the other means the afternoon. So why don't you go ahead and say that one of the carbon tamids has to be offered up in the morning and the rest can be offered up throughout the entire day? Because it will say when the Torah indicates that one of them is offered up in the morning, it means only one is offered up in the morning and the other is not. So therefore, again, even though by Tamid it says bein arba'im, since the Torah goes out of its way to say that one of them is offered up by Boker, that teaches us that bein arba'im in that context is explicit or is specific. The daf can mean that the carbon is only offered up by the afternoon. Neiros, we'll say, what about the menorah? Dichsiv bein ha'arba'im. It says ultimately again, the pasuk reads, "Ubalos aron es haneiros bein ha'arba'im." So you're going to tell me, remember again, we're challenging Ben Beseira's assertion because the Gemara is assuming right now that Ben Beseira, we've always interpreted, up until today, we've always interpreted Ben Arba'im to mean what? The afternoon. Now Ben Beseira apparently is advancing this very novel interpretation that Ben Arba'im means between the Aravim, between the evenings, which essentially gives you an entire day to perform the particular mitzvah stated. In Ben Beseira's situation, it's talking about Karban Pesach. So the Gemara says, what about the menorah? Hachanam dikul yom hakash. You're going to tell me you can light the menorah the entire day as well. Shani hasam d'chsiv me'erev va'ad boker. Well said by the menorah, it says from evening until morning. V'tanya me'erev ad boker. What does it mean me'erev ad boker? Tein la midasa shetehi dolekes v'holechas me'erev ad boker. Put in there enough oil that it has the ability to remain kindled, to remain lit from evening until morning. That's how Dash will say. See, even though Bein Arbayim over there actually means something dramatically different, which is a reference to the amount of oil which has to be included in the menorah. So the Gemara says, Elazub, I'm sorry. There is davar acher, I'm sorry. Another interpretation is there is no other avodah besides the menorah that ultimately again would be kosher from morning until evening. Fine, kitores. We'll say what about kitores? Tichsiv ba Bein Arbayim. So we'll say again, by Kitoris it also has been Arbayim. Hachinami dikul yama kasher. You're going to tell me that Kitoris is kasher the entire day. Shiny Kitoris will say top of your base. The iskish leneros. Kitoris is different. Why? Because Kitoris ultimately again is compared to the menorah. Rashi says this kish leneros ubahalos aron dahainu Bein Arbayim diktoris. So we'll say because it's a comparison ultimately again between neros, between Kitoris and neros, just as ultimately again. Just as we established that the Neros are kosher, so to the Ketoras are. Therefore, the Bein Arbayim there, we cannot ultimately learn from that Bein Arbayim to anything else. Hasam Nami, I by Pesach as well, Ksiv, Sham Tizbach es Pesach Ba'erev. So we'll say, but one second, by Pesach it also says, the Pasuk also says, Sham Tizbach es Pesach Ba'erev. So you see over here it says Ba'erev, so to which the Gemara says, Bahahu li uchar davar hudasa. Both sides. So here's what the Gemara is pointing out, which is as follows. By Pesach, we now have two terms. One term of Bein Ha'arbayim and one term of Erev. So even if you want to say that Bein Ha'arbayim means what? Bein Ha'arbayim means between the Aravim, between the evenings. Therefore telling me that Karban Pesach is kosher all day. What do you do with the fact that it says Sham Tizbach es Pesach Ba'erev? Right? We'll say, so what do you do with that? That seems to clearly indicate that the Karban Pesach is offered up in the afternoon. Remember, Erev doesn't have to mean evening, right? Erev could just mean the afternoon. To which the Gemara says, no. Hahu liyuchar davar hudasa. We'll say this is actually quite fascinating. This teaches us an important halacha about delaying the Karban Pesach. We'll say, what does that mean? Take a look at Rashi. Yuchar davar, yuchar Pesach letamid. Da'af agav dekula yom azmanei, ishihiyeh azman shchitas atamid, tamid kodem. We'll say this is actually amazing. Is to teach me the following halacha, that even if you hold like Ben Beseira, that the time for Karban Pesach is the entire day, if you end up waiting until the time of what we would call Mincha Gidola, right, 6.5 hours into the day, which then is the time for the Karban Tamid, so the halacha is what? The Karban Tamid is offered up before the Karban Pesach. So that second Erev teaches me as follows, that although Karban Pesach is kosher the whole day, if you choose to wait until after Chatzos, and now it's the time for Karban Tamid, you offer up the Karban Tamid before you go ahead and you offer up the Karban Pesach. To which the Gemara says this, Sanya, Yu'uchar davar shene'emar bo ba'erev u'bein ha'arbayim, l'davar shelo ne'emar bo ela bein ha'arbayim bilvad. The thing for which the Torah says, the Karban for which the Torah says both Erev and Bein ha'arbayim is delayed later than the Karban for which it only says Bein ha'arbayim. We'll say, what are the two Karbanos being referred to over here? Karban Pesach and Karban Tamid. By Karban Pesach, it says Erev and Bein ha'arbayim. By Karban Tamid, it just says Bein ha'arbayim. Therefore, when the two conflict, Karban Pesach is always offered later. Karban Tamid is offered first. Karban Pesach is offered later. So the Gemara says, "Umiika midi di'ilu shachet le'mitzafra amrit zmanehu v'chimati zman v'chimati bein ha'arbayim amrit di'uchar davar." Rabbi said, "This is amazing." So the Gemara says that's totally counterintuitive. How can you have something that is kosher the whole day, even from the morning, and yet once the afternoon comes, you have to delay its offering until after the Karban Tamid? As well say, right now we're operating under the premise, or with the premise, that Karban Pesach is kosher the entire day. So if you operate with that premise, now what you just told me is as follows. Karban Pesach is kosher the entire day, and then what happens? But yeah, once we'll call it Chatzos. Once Chatzos comes, and now it's time for Karban Tamid. I have to offer up the Karban Tamid before I offer up the Karban Pesach. Why? Because by Karban Pesach it says Erev and Bein Arbaim, which means delay it, and by Tamid it just says Bein Arbaim. Does that make sense? Karban Pesach is kosher the whole morning. It's kosher the whole morning. When I can't even bring the afternoon Tamid in the morning, obviously. Now once I get you have to delay Karban Pesach. Is there ever such a concept? Tish Gemara says, there is such a concept. Dam Rabbi Yochanan says it's actually a very important halacha. Halacha mispalo shel mincha va'achagach mispalo shel musafin. Both say the halacha is musaf can be davened the entire day, but technically speaking, if you wait and you delay musaf until after chatzos, or I'm using chatzos, it's really mincha gidola, 6.5 hours in the day. We'll say what's the halacha? The halacha is you daven mincha before musaf. Now again, what's the logic behind that? That's a logic of tadir v'she'ino tadir kodem. Because at this point in time now, I have the ability to daven two different tefillos. I have to daven more. We'll say, where does this come up? Mishnah discusses, where does this come up? Yamim Noraim, right? Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. Some shuls which have long davening. This is right? So I'll say, so again, if you're not starting early enough, so it's very easy, depending on when Rosh Hashanah falls out during the year, to go past Chatzos. So literally, again, you could have a potential issue. That if it's past Chatzos and you have not yet davened Musaf on a technical halachic level, Mincha comes first. So we'll say, so the Gemara says, yes, you have this concept of something which could be kosher the entire day, the previous morning, but then once you hit midday and you have another obligation which has been triggered, especially if that obligation occurs with greater frequency than the first, you could have a situation where that second obligation would then take halachic precedence over the first. A fascinating halacha. Therefore, we'll say the Gemara is suggesting over here that happens, that interplay occurs with Karban Pesach and with Karban Tamid. That even though, again, Karban Pesach could be offered up the entire day, nevertheless, once Mincha Gidola, once Chatzos comes along, halacha l'maisa, again, you would offer up the Karban Tamid first, and then, and only then, offer up the Karban Pesach. So we'll say, now we go back for just a moment. Why is it that ultimately, again, Bein Arbaim is written by Ketores and Neros? So we'll say, what the Gemara is asking over here is as follows. If you've just established that technically, so Neros and Ketores can be offered up the entire day, or it's used for different drushes. So what does Bein Arbaim by these two situations teach me? To which the Gemara says, Va'od, Hishiv Rebbe Tachas ben Beseira de Rebbe Yoshua. Furthermore, again, Rebbe answered to Rebbe Yoshua on behalf of Ben Beseira, Lo im amrit b'shlosha asar she'ein miktsas roi, tomar ba'arba asar she'miktsas roi. We'll say furthermore, again, in a side conversation that was occurring between Rabbi Yoshua and Ben Beseira. Now, it was really occurring on behalf of Rabbi Yoshua through Rebbe. Rebbe was responding to the Shita of Ben Beseira. So he said the following. If on the 13th, this is still my offering of a Pesach Shalol Lishma, if on the 13th, where ultimately, again, no part of the day is kosher for Karban Pesach, yet on the 14th, part of the day is kosher for Karban Pesach. Now, both say, without getting into the substance of the argument, it doesn't matter. What does matter is as follows. Vim Isa Kula Roihu. Both say, if Rebbe is advocating on behalf of Ben Beseira, then what? Then Lamaisa, again, the conversation should not be that on the 14th part of the day is kosher for Karban Pesach. Rather, what should the conversation be? The conversation should be that on the 14th, what? The entire day is kosher for Pesach. So we'll say, so now the Gemara does a 180. I'm going to be Yochanan. Posel, Haya ben Beseira v'Pesach sheshachtu ba'arbas or shachris, bein lishmo, bein shelo lishmo. We'll say, so now we come back. Ben Beseira, where we are fundamentally negating that which we led with. This entire sugya led with the statement of Ben Beseira, of Rabbi Lazar's interpretation of Ben Beseira, that Ben Beseira holds that if you shecht a Karban Pesach lishma on the morning of the 14th, that the Karban is kosher. Why is the Karban kosher? Because at the end of the day, the entire 14th is kosher for Pesach. The Gemara now goes back and says, incorrect. Ben Beseira does not hold that you could shecht the Karban Pesach on the morning of the 14th. In fact, if you shecht the Karban Pesach on the morning of the 14th, bein lishmo, bein shelo lishmo, it is going to be pasul. Why? Hoil umiksaso roi. Since part of the day ultimately again is fit for Karban Pesach, therefore what? You both say since the afternoon is fit for Karban Pesach, sounds like what Ben Beseira is saying is what? Therefore again, the morning is not. The morning is not. The afternoon is, and therefore the morning is not. Megadif ba. So we'll say. So now this actually is very helpful because remember, I'm sure many of us when we were learning that shita of Ben Beseira, let's say was a dramatically overwhelming shita. Because at the end of the day, whoever heard such a thing like this, the Karban Pesach is kosher in the morning, and the Gemara seems to say it with such confidence. Also, it's a good mussar in life. Sometimes if you say something with confidence, it sounds believable, right? But so Ben Beseira says it with such confidence that Lamaisa again it sounds very believable. But now the Gemara says no, we actually do not paskin that way. The morning is puzzle for Karban Pesach. Megadif ba Rabbi Avo. So we'll say Rabbi Avo. This is actually interesting. We've seen this term. I don't. I'll tell you the truth. I remember seeing this term before the last couple of Masechtos. This Megadif ba. So we'll say because Megadif normally means what? To curse, right? So we'll say. Remember again. Here it means to like express astonishment, right? To be puzzled. So it's just interesting. I don't know why. I may have just I haven't been paying enough attention, but I don't remember seeing this, before the last couple of Masechtos, like when we were in Moed and Nashim. I don't remember. I'm sure somebody could just do a search for it, but it's just interesting. We've seen this word a couple of times. So Megadif ba Rabbi Avo Im Kain Pesach Kosher LeBen Beseira Heichi Mishkachas. And I will say. So now the Gemara asks an amazing question. So now explain to me. Watch this. Explain to me how you have a case of a kosher Karban Pesach according to Ben Beseira. Now we'll say, what does that mean? So we'll say, watch this. So we'll say, if you go ahead and what? If you go ahead and you separate out the Karban on the morning of the 14th, then I will say that Karban should be set aside for non-use. Why? Look at Rashi. It's actually Rashi right across. So Rashi says, if you go ahead and you separate out this Karban on the morning of the 14th, so here's the issue. If I separate out the Karban on the morning of the 14th, then I will say that Karban is set aside for non-use. Now, why is the Karban set aside for non-use? Because when I separate it out on the morning of the 14th, what can I do with that Karban? What can I do with it? Nothing. Because remember again, we just established that according to Ben Beseira, the morning of the 14th is possible. You can't do nothing until the afternoon. So if I separate it out on the 14th, I can't do anything with it. We'll say a Karban that you can't do anything with at the time of separation is nidcha, is set aside for non-use. So therefore, I can't separate it out on the morning of the 14th. And if I go ahead and I separate it out yesterday on the 13th, then what? Nira v'nidchehu. Look at Rashi, mamish right across. The afreshe me'esmol nira v'nidchehu. Now, we'll say if I separate it on the 13th, is the Karban fit? Is the Karban fit to be offered? Is it fit to be offered? Yes, on a technical level. As what? As a shlamim. Meaning that it is carbonically fit. Not carbonically fit for a Karban Pesach, but the designation is a real designation, ultimately, again, because it could be a shlamim. Rashi says, so I will say, here's the problem. So if I separate it out on the 14th, then what? On the 13th. Then on the 13th, it's fit for shlamim. But then once again, on the morning of the 14th, it's unfit. That means you have a Karban that was fit, unfit. Once it's become unfit, then what? It can no longer be offered up. Ella, so we'll say, so Gemara is just asking a very technical question. According to Ben Beseira, when do you have a situation, or how can you separate a Karban Pesach in an appropriate way? Ella, Amr Rabbi Avo, Tehela Achar Chatzos. So look, there's a simple way of it. What's the simple way? After midday. Don't separate out your Karban Pesach until after midday. What happens after midday on Erev Pesach? We'll say, come on. I want to say, rest of Zevachim, I won't give you a hard time if you're not holding this. This is mamish like this is like a walk in the park, right? This is a carbonic walk in the park. So I'll say, so again, Karban Pesach. So separate after Chatzos. That's the easiest thing. After Chatzos, we'll say the Karban could be offered. Therefore, again, it's not nidcha, it's right. It's totally fit. To which the Gemara says, so that could be the simple answer. Simple answer could be that according to Ben Beseira, Karban Pesach must always be offered up after midday on Erev. It must be designated after midday on Erev Pesach. I know what you're thinking about. You see, one of the interests. Actually, I don't know what you're thinking about, but I'm going to tell you what you should be thinking about. So amazingly enough, remember, it's incredible. If you go with this, which is incredibly novel. One of the major distinctions between Pesach and Mitzrayim, the Rash in Maseches Pesachim lists about, I think, 10, 12 differences between Pesach Mitzrayim and Pesach Doros. the original Pesach and subsequent Pesach. Of course, one of the fundamental distinctions was what? Was by Korban Pesach. By Pesach, what was the halacha? Mikcho ba'asor. You had to purchase your korban on the 10th. On the 10th. By Pesach Doros, there is no such obligation. So that's very interesting, and therefore, again, that kind of is amplified over here because according to Ben Besira, it would appear that not only do you not have to purchase it early, but it sounds like according to Ben Besira, what? You can't purchase it early. Meaning, let me say it differently. You can purchase the animal, but you can't designate it as the korban, apparently according to Ben Besira, until the afternoon mamish, after Chatzos on Erev Pesach. Quite so again, purchasing it is not a problem. You can purchase it whenever you want. But the designation cannot be done according to the Messiah until after midday. Says the Gemara, no. So Amra Abayu, Amra Afilu Tema Mitzafra. It's not true. According to Ben Beseira, you could even designate the animal in the morning. How so? Ein mechusar zman lebo bayo. So what that means is as follows. Mechusar zman abosai refers to a carbonic psul, right? A carbonic invalidation of something which does not have the requisite time. So we'll say, so once you're on the right calendar date, the korban is no longer considered to be mechusar zman. Look at Rashi for just a moment. Rashi says, "Afilu tema mitzafra ve'in kan dichli meikaro hoil v'roya hayom in kan chisar zman." So we'll say, so now Abai says something amazing. Abai says, once you get to Erev Pesach, you're good. You're good. In other words, the fact that you can't offer up that korban on the morning of Erev Pesach is fine. That doesn't matter. What matters is that you're on the right calendar day on which that korban is going to be offered. The fact that you can't offer it up for the next couple of hours until midday, they will say that does not invalidate the designation. So I will say, therefore, again, comes along Rabbi Avo, and Rabbi Avo says, no, even according to Ben Besira, you could go ahead and designate the animal as Korban Pesach the entire day of Erev Pesach. Rav Papa says the truth is, afilu tema me arta. In reality, you could even designate that animal as Korban Pesach when? Even the previous evening. So we'll say, which would be the evening of what? The evening of the 14th. Again, remember, this is still the evening of Erev Pesach. Well, for our purposes, the night of B'dikas Chametz. Right? So you can even designate your animal as Korban Pesach the night of B'dikas Chametz. So the Gemara says, 1 second. So the Gemara says, Laila in Mechusar Zman. Because same idea. Once you get to the night, right? So the night of the 14th, Rabbi is already what? The correct calendar day. You're already at Erev Pesach. Essentially, what the Gemara is saying is, even according to Ben Besira, once you've hit Korban Pesach, once you have arrived calendrically at Korban Pesach, so then your designation is fine. Even though what? The novelty is what? Even though what? You can't yet actually offer up the Korban Pesach. Nevertheless, again, the designation will be absolutely valid and binding. The Tani Rabbi Shmuel Leil Shmini Nichnas Ladir Les Aser Uchidirebi Apturiki. The Rebbe up to supposed to listen to this. The halacha is the Torah says that you can't offer up an animal as a korban for the first 7 days of its life. It's only umayom hashmini v'hala yiratzeh korban shel Hashem. Only from the 8th day of the animal's life and on can you offer it up as a korban. So the Rabbi Shmuel says the following: that on the night of the 8th, you could go into the pen and you could go ahead and separate which animal you're going to offer up as the korban. And this is like Rabbi Aputriki. Rabbi Aputriki, Rami Ksiv, that's his name. So he contrasted two psukim. So we'll say the pasuk says that the animal has to be 7 days with its mother. So ha laila chazi, which also seems to indicate to me the what? Once I get to the 8th day, even when the night of the 8th day, so to speak, that the animal is fit to be offered up as a korban. Yet it also says, the Yana says from the 8th day and on, it shall be offered up as a korban. So we'll say, Saha Laila Lo Chazi. That seems to indicate to us that what? That the nighttime is not fit. So also we have two contrasting psukim. One pasuk seems to indicate to me that once I get to the night of the 8th, I'm good and I could offer up the korban. One pasuk seems to indicate that what? I have to get to the day of the 8th in order for it to be fit. So okay, so how do I reconcile the psukim? Very simple. Laila L'Kedusha, V'yom Naritzah. At night, ultimately, again, I can already designate it as a korban, but it cannot be offered up as a korban except by day. So we'll say, so therefore the Gemara is applying that same distinction over here by Korban Pesach. Then even according to Ben Beseira, even according to everyone, even though I can't go ahead and offer up the korban until after midday on Erev Pesach, nevertheless, what? I am permitted to go ahead and designate it Already from the evening of Karban Pesach, already the night of the 14th, one is permitted to designate. So we'll say now we're going to come now to a fast. This I know I use it a lot, but this is mamish going to be riveting. So it says the Gemara as follows: so Rabbi Yochanan holds Balei Chaim Nitchin. Rabbi, which means what? That once an animal is set aside for non-carbonic use, it can't shake that designation. Rabbi said, herein lies one of the fundamental. Let me read it first. So Balei Chaim Nitchin means once the animal is set aside for carbonic non-use. Right. Therefore, again, it cannot shake that designation. Even if its circumstances change, it cannot once again become an acceptable carbon. So the Gemara says, "Amrlayin." He says, "Yes, that is what Rabbi Yochanan holds." Dam Rabbi Yochanan, behema shalshnei shutvin hikdish chatzia v'chazer v'laka chatzia v'hikdish kedusha ve'ina kreva. Well, so listen to this. If you have an animal that belongs to two partners, Reuven and Shimon, we'll say what happens. So Reuven sanctifies his half of the animal. He's makdish his half of the animal. Now, we'll say now the halacha is that an animal cannot attain 50% sacrificial sanctity. So either an animal has 100% sacrificial sanctity or 0 sacrificial sanctity. Now again, remember we've made this distinction between Kedushas Haguf and Kedushas Damim. Kedushas Damim means financial sanctity. So financial sanctity absolutely could be accomplished in percentages. So you could have an animal that has 50% financial sanctity, but when it comes to physical sanctity, you're 100% or you're 0. 100% or 0. So now let's say Reuven and Shimon own an animal jointly. Reuven is makdish his half. He's makdish his half. Then I will say what happens? He then buys out Shimon and is makdish the other half. So what's the status of this animal? So the Gemara says, Kedusha ve'ena kreva. We'll say ultimately it's Kaddish, but it can't be offered up as a carbon. Which we'll say means what? Means what? Essentially, it has attained financial sanctity, but not physical sanctity. Look at Rashi. Ve'ena kreva, hoilu betchilas hekdesha, lo nir la'krava. We'll say since at the first stage of sanctity, it was not fit for offering because it only attained 50% sanctity. Therefore, since in the beginning of the process, it was not fit to be offered up as a carbon. Therefore, what Rabbi is saying, we'll say, so essentially what we say is, once an animal is not fit for carbonic use, it can't shake that designation. That designation of non-use remains, even if what? Even if circumstances around the animal change. Rashi says, ultimately, again, what we could do is we could allow it to graze, develop a mum, redeem it, use that money to purchase another carbon. So the Gemara says, but yet this animal could also make a tumura, meaning if you try to exchange another animal for this animal, it becomes a tumura. And its tumura has the same status as what we call the origin animal. Ushmamina tlas. And we learn 3 things from here. Number 1, shmamina balei chaim nitchin. Number 1, we learn that once an animal is unfit for use, for carbonic use, it cannot shake that designation. That it remains unfit, even if its circumstances change. Furthermore, again, ushmamina dichui meikara hava dichui. Furthermore, we learn that again, I will say, when it's unfit from the beginning of this process, ultimately, again, that status remains. Ushmamina amadeis yesh dichui bidamit. And I will say, furthermore, again, we see that the concept of dichui literally means pushed away. But for our purposes, it means set aside for sacrificial non-use. Also applies to monetary sanctity as well. Take a look at Rashi, top Rashi Beis Amud Beis. So yesh dichui b'damim, yesh Torah's dichui b'kedushas damim, ava pi she'ina kedushas haguf. Kigon hacha shehikdish chatzia lo kitsha ela l'dameha shara'in lo chelik b'chatzia. Ve'in kedusha ru'ya lifshot b'kula alpim. So we'll say ultimately again that the concept of dichui also applies by financial example. We'll say I just want to point out an incredible mussar with this. So we'll say herein lies the difference between human beings and animals. What the Gemara is teaching us is as follows: that once an animal has a status, then what? Unchangeable. And we'll say what a bracha the Ribono Shel Olam gave us. That is unequivocally false by human beings. No matter what I've done to myself, and no matter what kind of mess I get myself into, no matter, we'll say, how much I might be nidcha, set aside or pushed aside, a human being always has the ability to change his circumstances, to change himself. By Balei Chayim, we say, Shma Mina, right? Balei Chayim nidchin. Bali Chaim nitchin. Animals are nitchin. Animals are nitchin. For Shema Mina, dichui meikara have dichui. Once you mess up, right, the status of an animal, it's totally messed up. Ushma Mina yesh dichui bedamim. And I will say again, that dichui applies on every level, on a personal level, on a financial level. But Baruch Hashem, that's all by Bali Chaim. By human beings, Rabbi say, ein shum dichui ba'olam klal. To borrow Rabbi Nachman's phrase a little bit, right? Rabbi Nachman says, "Ein yesh ba'olam klal, ein dichui ba'olam klal." Both say there's no such thing that once you mess up, you are forever locked in that mistake. That once you mess up, you are forever set aside. What applies by animals, Baruch Hashem, unequivocally, categorically, does not apply by us. Amar Ula, both say, listen to this. Now I'm going to give you. Remember, I promised you riveting Gemara.
Yeah.
I'm going to deliver. Amar Ula, Amar Yochel. We'll say, here we go. Now we'll say we're going on a little bit of a detour over here. Now it's not really a detour because essentially what you're going to see is as follows. Once we started talking about this concept, first of all, it appears that like we wrapped up the Ben Becerra conversation. Why does it appear that we wrapped up the Ben Becerra conversation? Because we're done. the Gemara goes on to something else. So we'll say the good news is Ben Becerra now is not really all that different than anyone else. Meaning everyone agrees that halacha l'maisa you can only shech the car on Pesach when? After midday on Erev Pesach. But when can you designate the Korban Pesach? Well, it appears designation of the Korban Pesach could occur anytime once you've calendrically hit Erev Pesach. Nighttime of Erev Pesach, daytime of Erev Pesach, we're good. So we'll say now, here we go. Amar Ula, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Achol chaylev, v'hifrish karban, v'hemer das. Wow. Let's listen to this. Ruvain eats chaylev, forbidden fat. Then what happens? He separates out a karban. But then what happens? He becomes an apikoris. Ruvain, right? So eight chaylev came in serious avera, separated out of chatos, then became an apikoris. Right? Hemer das literally means he gives up religion. V'chazerbo, then he does tshuva. It's been a busy day for Ruvain, right? Then he does tshuva. So we'll say, so now what's the shaila? Now understand what happened. When he went off the derech havosai, he already set aside the chatos, he set aside the karban. He never offered it. Now he comes back to the fold. What does he want to do? He wants to offer up his karban. So we'll say, what's the status of the karban? To which the Gemara says, Hoil v'nitcha yitcha. That karban is puzzle. That karban cannot be offered up. Why? Once it was set aside for non-use, it was set aside for non-use. So we'll say, what's the problem here? Look at Rashi, get ready. Hemir das, Rashi says, nitcha mi karban. We'll say, when a person becomes an apikores, they lose the right to offer up a karban. Ba'kol shochtin me'am ha'aretz prat l'mumar. We'll say, the Gemara darshins in Chulin, which we'll learn, for the pasuk am ha'aretz, that if a person is a mumar, if a person is a non-believer, the halacha is they are not permitted to bring a karban to the Beis Hamikdash. So we'll say this is an amazing case. And again, this is the continuation of the previous discussion. Once Ruvain becomes a mumar, once he becomes an apikoris, he is no longer able to bring a karban. That karban is nidcha. Even once he's choser b'tshuva, that's fine. But remember, that's not fine. It's beautiful. But what? Howil v'nidcha yidcha. Remember how he passed in by Bali Chaim. Once a karban is set aside for non-use, it can no longer. That's it. It's done. It's done. What's the next case? I told you these are incredible. Itmar nami. I'm Rabbi Yochanan. Watch this. Achol chaylev. V'hifresh karban. I'll say Ruvain ate chaylev, forbidden fat. He separated out of karban chatos. He didn't offer it. Before he offered it, what happened? Nishtata. We'll say, what does nishtata mean? He went insane. He went insane. In other words, we'll say he doesn't have das. Rashi says, nitcha deba'inan das. So we'll say, in order to bring a karban, a person has to go. And we'll say, I want to be clear. A shota, we'll say, has halachic definitions, right? Has halachic definitions, right? The Gemara says, Lan bebeis hakvaris, someone who goes and sleeps in the cemetery, koreas begadav, he tears his clothing, engages in destructive acts. So again, there's a halachic definition for these things. Person becomes a shota, so they don't have requisite das. Then what happens? The chazar v'nishtapa, but then it becomes healthy again, right? So also we're talking, the Gemara is referring over here not to a person, it's like a person might have a clinical issue. So what happens? So they become a shota, but then Baruch Hashem, nishtapa literally means they're cured. Cured doesn't have to mean that at the end of the day, the ailment goes away, but a person is once again stable. So we're both saying, what's the halacha? Hoil v'nitcha yitcha. Same thing I'm both saying. What if again, since at the time that he was a shota cannot offer up a karban. Why can't a shota offer up a karban? Because the karban needs das. I will say so what happens when it becomes a shota? That karban becomes nitcha. That karban is set aside for non-use. Even once he becomes healthy again, the carbon cannot be offered. So it's like, it's the same principle, right? It's the same principle. What's the same principle? Essentially, once a carbon becomes carbonically designated as non-offerable, that designation cannot be reversed. Now, the obvious shaila is what I will say. Why do I need two cases? Or okay, I got it. Once, if I separate a carbon and then my circumstances change, that I can't offer up the carbon, even if they go back to what they originally were, I can't offer up the carbon. Why do you need to illustrate this with both the case of the apikores and the shot? It's the same principle. To which I'll tell you why. If I would have just said the apikores case, so I would have said in the apikores case, I understand why when he comes back, he can't offer up the carbon. Why, Rabbi Hussein? Because he made the conscious decision to leave. So if you make the conscious decision to leave, then what? Then halacha l'maisa again, okay, you abdicate your right to offer up that carbon. But in the case of the shota, we are assuming that this is a clinical circumstance that a person cannot control. If a person cannot control it, then l'maisa again, maybe I would say that once they recover from their episode, they should be able to offer up their carbon. Kiyashin dami. But it's actually interesting. Maybe the person, when he undergoes his manic episode, is like what? Or not manic, but when he undergoes his episode, he's like someone who's asleep. Plus, it's just like someone who's asleep doesn't have das, but ultimately regains that das. So maybe this person also, when he has his episode, he's like someone who's a yashin, but when he awakes, so to speak, he should be able to offer his carbon. Therefore, the Gemara has to teach me that even in the case of shota, once he doesn't have das and the carbon is nidcha, therefore what? He cannot offer up the carbon again. But if I would have just said the case of the shota, so the case of the shota is where what? Where the individual is the shota sometimes doesn't have the power to be able to restore himself to his previous baseline. In the case of the apikores, where what? He does have the ability to go ahead and return. Therefore, again, therefore, I will say both cases ultimately again are necessary. So we'll say, watch this. So first of all, we'll say this is indeed halacha l'maisa. The Rambam codifies these cases because we operate with this principle that ba'alei chayim nidchin. Once a carbon is set aside, or once circumstances occur that dictate that a carbon is non-offerable, even if the circumstances change, the carbon does not revert back to an offerable status. Watch this next case. This is amazing, because it's also great because it takes us back to our Haris days a little bit. We'll say, watch this. Ruvain eats chaylev. Separates out his chatas. Now, before he offers up the chatas, what happens? Vahoru Beis Din shechaylev mutter. So we'll say, what happens? So Beis Din now makes an erroneous psak, and what do they say? They say that chaylev is mutter. We'll say, now look at Rashi for just a moment. It's Rashi right across. Nidchelo dilu avar hashta lav bar karbanu. Now we'll say, now watch this. So remember, Ruvain ate chaylev on Monday. He separated out a carbon. Tuesday, Beis Din comes along and paskins that what? Chaylev is mutter. Chaylev is mutter. Now I will say, now what were to happen? If Ruvain were to try to go ahead and bring that chatas on Tuesday, what would happen? They would tell him, no, you can't bring a chatas reading chaylev. You're right, you didn't do anything wrong. Beis Din paskin that chaylev was totally fine. Then what happened? The chazru bahen, then Beis Din retracts its original ruling. So we'll say mahu. So what's the status of Ruvain's chatas? So we'll say this is a very interesting case. Because in this case over here, nothing's changed with Ruvain, nothing's changed with the animal. What changed is that Beis Din paskin that chaylev is mutter. So we'll say in that period of the psak on Tuesday, if Reuben were to try to offer up his chatos, the Kohen would stop him. Remember again, when you show up at the Beis Hamikdash, it's not just, it's not like a drive-through, I'll take whatever. We'll say that you have to explain why you're offering what you're offering, because we want to make sure that people are doing what is sacrificially correct. So Reuben eats his chaylev, separates out the carbon on Monday, shows up on Tuesday to go ahead and offer up his chatas. The Kohen says, no, what's going on? So eat chaylev. Kohen says, what's wrong? The Beis Din just sat in session this morning on Tuesday. They paskin that chaylev is totally mutter. There's no chatos. Reuben says, okay, goes home. Wednesday, they put out the kol koreh that Beis Din was wrong. So we'll say now, so Reuven thinks to himself, okay, I still have my chatos, I didn't do anything with it. I'm going to offer up my chatos. So we'll say, so the shaila is, what's the status of that chatos? So mahu, mi havi dichui, or lo havi dichui. We'll say, is this a case of dichui or not? In other words, we'll say, in this case over here, on Tuesday, when Reuven shows up to offer up that chatos, they're not going to accept that chatos, because for that period of time, the assumption is that Reuven does not owe a chatos, that animals are unnecessary chatos. So do we say that now the animal was set aside for non-use? that status does not change, and therefore Reuven cannot offer up that chatos. Or no, Amalehu Saba. So we'll say there was an older sage who was there, and he said the following: Ki pasach Rabbi Yochanan b'dichuyin mehai pasach. When Rabbi Yochanan ultimately would teach the sugya, ultimately of dichui, he would begin dafka with this case, not with all the other cases. Why? My taima hasam gavra itri karban lo itri hacha karban nami itri. So we'll say, because if you think about it, this is the paradigmatic case of dichui. Why, Rabbi say? Because in the previous cases, what changed? What changed? The person. It's actually the carbon. Nothing changed with the carbon. The person's status changed, and my status has an impact on the carbon. So therefore, it is a case of dichui, but this is the paradigmatic case of dichui. Because we'll say in this particular case over here, what changed? The actual status. The person did not. The status of the carbon changed. So we'll say, and indeed, halacha l'maisa, it seems to me the way we pass in that case is that Reuven would not be able to bring that chatos. That once that chatos was set aside for non-use, it's nitcha, and whole the nitcha yitcha. Amr Shimon ben Azai. So also remember Shimon ben Azai said, I have a Masorah from 72 elders, Shivim Ushnayim Zokain. So Lamali Lemisna, Shivim Ushnayim Zokain. We'll say, why doesn't the Mishnah say 72 elders? Why does it say Shivim Ushnayim Zokain, elder? We'll say to teach us that what? All of them held the same thing. Lohosef ben Azai Ela Ha'ola. So also remember again, going back to the Mishnah, Ben Azai essentially agreed with everything that the Chachamim said, except that Ben Azai added on Ola. The Rabbi said the halacha is he added on Ola to the Chatas and the Pesach category, that if you go ahead and you shecht an Ola Shalo Lishma, the Ola will be puzzle. So it says the Gemara, my time the Ben Azai. Why does Ben Azai hold that an Ola that's offered up Shalo Lishma is going to be puzzle? So the Gemara says, because the pasuk says Olahu Ishay Reach Nichoach LaHashem. Because also the pasuk by Ola uses which word? The word who. What does who teach us? He lishma kshera shalo lishma psula. Both said this is a famous drush we've made a number of times. Whenever you see the word who or he means Rabbi say is an insistence on the shma. By Ola it says who or he, who says both actually, and therefore again the Torah teaches us that the Ola must be done the shma. I asham namik siv bei who. By asham Rabbi it changes it to he. By asham it also says who. Right. So yet again Rabbi say, everyone except for one shita in the first Mishnah held that a asham offered up shol lishma is still going to be kosher. Hahu la'achar haktaras ein marim hu dichse. We'll say that who by asham is written after the burning of the limbs. And we spoke about this yesterday a little bit. What's the ikar part of any carbonic process? Zrika, sprinkling of the blood. Right? That's the ikar. That's the ikar. Right? The burning of the fats and the limbs is something that is important, but at the end of the day, Rabbi say is not li'ikuva. So the fact that it says who after what? After the Aktaras, a Varim Ve'imur, Rabbi say doesn't matter to us all of that much. Doesn't matter to us all that much. Fine. So the Gemara says, fine. But one second. By Ola, the who is also written after the burning of the fats and the limbs. To which the Gemara says, no, by Ola, Trehu Ksivi. We'll say it says the word who twice. It says the word who twice. Since one of them is stated earlier on in the process, therefore Allah Chamaisa teaches us that Ola must be offered up Lishma. The Gemara says, Trehu Ksivi. Gabi Asham Nami Trehu Ksivi. But by Asham it also says who twice. Ella ben Azai bekal v'chomer ma'isila. Rather, we'll say Ben Azai is learning his halacha from a kal v'chomer. He's learning the idea that a Ola must be offered up Lishma from a kal v'chomer. We'll say, what's the kal v'chomer? So here we go. Uma chatas she'ino kalil. So I'll say chatas, which is not totally consumed on the mizbeach. Shachta shelo lishma psula. If you shechted it shelo lishma, it is puzzle. Ola shehi kalil lo kol shekin. So we'll say this is actually quite interesting. So Ben Azai is assuming that an ola is more chamer than a chatas. How is he assuming that an ola is more? Is more kal than a chatas? I will say so. If the chatas ultimately again more chamer, if the chatas, which is not totally consumed on the mizbeach, it has to be offered up lishma. So an ola, which is totally consumed on the mizbeach, certainly should have to be offered up lishma. So if a chatas, which we'll say is consumed partially by the kohanim, has to be offered up lishma, certainly a carbon that is kula laHashem, totally for God, has to be offered up lishma. So the Gemara says, Ola shikali lo kol shekin, to which the Gemara said, but one second, malachatas shekin mechaperes. But chatas is different. Why? Because chatas affords kapara. So maybe that's what distinguishes it ultimately again from everything else and requires it to be lishma. So we'll say 1 second, Pesach yochiach, but we have Karam Pesach. What's like Karma Pesach has to be done l'shma, but yet what? Karma Pesach does not afford any kapara. To which the Gemara says Pesach is different. Ma'ala Pesach shekin zmano kavua. Pesach is different. Why? Ultimately, again, because it has a set time. Chatas tochiach. So I'll say Chatas will prove this because Chatas doesn't have a set time. The Chazar Adin, and I will say keep going around in circles, and therefore we say Lo Re'izeh Kirizeh V'Lo Re'izeh Kirizeh Zeh Tzad HaShaveh Shaveh. And I will say what is the Tzad HaShaveh? Shein Kodshim B'Shachtan Shalosh Psulim. I will say what is the Tzad HaShaveh between Pesach and Chatas? Both are Kodshim, both are Karbanos, and if you shech them Shalom Lushma, they are apostle. Av Ani Avi Ola She Kodshim B'Shachta Shalom Lushma Psula. Therefore I will say I will also include what? I will also include Ola, which ultimately again is Kodshim, and if you go in and you shecht it Shalom Lishma, it will be possible. But we'll stop over here for today. I'm gonna record just the rest until the Mishnah on Yud Gimel Amud Aleph a little bit later on this morning. We'll get to the end of the sugya. But we'll stop over here with Ben Azai.